Anybody hear me?
Socks and really look up.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can hear you, John.
Thank you.
Pretend like I'm German.
Anybody hear me?
They're German. Mine.
You can move them around.
Always near the center.
Right.
John, you in Alaska?
We're all muted and stuff. I unmuted.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find you guys again here. I am in Alaska. Having a down day, rainy down day. Watching a lot of F-22 practice today at Emmendorf.
Oh, that should be interesting.
It's been pretty interesting. They've
Yeah,
been all doing all these different formations and flying with the AWAC plane and
The
hopefully
mediocre,
going to the Ukraine to go start kicking some Soviet butt over there.
I think it's a mediocre airplane, John.
The 22, the 35s do that vertical takeoff with the thing like in the movie. The move, the Cobra.
Yeah, the Cobra. I think that's a better airplane. But
You
either one
never
of them.
get tired of watching that. I know Roger wouldn't get tired of watching that.
no,
Vertical in formation, vertical takeoff, or they do the sequential thing where like 8 of them go in a row every 15 seconds.
wow,
Pretty exciting.
yeah, not my kind of flying.
Oh, doesn't remind you of you and I flying down to Mona Lake.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, the same time, yeah.
Well, I'm just not connected to the internet. It would work. SLCO library, no internet open.
I got that when I
What?
first got here too.
Are you guys logged on to the? Okay,
Yeah.
Now I am. It just needs to bring me through the browser. Thing. Huh.
Yeah, I need to like read it.
Try our refresh.
Yeah, I can get to that page too, I just can't.
Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how much public feedback we've had.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Got a few
Yeah.
friends. Hi, Roger.
Did we get any more after the one Molly that you sent at 11?
Like 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them. I got a letter from Ano talking about it, and
Ano, really?
yeah, that's a blast from the past. Always good to hear from him. But you know, I guess the translation through a bunch of different layers was that somehow we were going against UDOT. I tried to set the record straight with respect to that. I don't see this as going against UDOT. In fact, I think we're trying hard to embrace UDOT. We're just against the gondola.
Right, right.
Yeah, so it's the same problem. Did we put it on the front page?
So can you, Molly, are you able to do anything on the back end?
Yeah, it's just that one page.
Interesting.
Madam,
So put it on like the news. Yeah, I was just thinking front page. And hopes that somebody might see it.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, the best we can do, I guess.
Does Mike Vaughn's letter count as a public comment?
That was just an email to you, John.
No, I got an email from Mike.
Did you? Okay.
I don't think I did.
Did he send the email to the whole council or?
I would, it looked like it was the whole council.
We should kind of refrain talking business until we start the meeting, sorry to be the.
Okay.
So that's why I hear me.
You're always the word. Come on.
Yes, good quality.
Kind of gotta
Great quality.
stick to those things sometimes.
You know, I'm looking at the letterhead and I'm not seeing that it has everybody. It has members of the council, but not the council, although you're listed, Roger.
Okay.
That too.
Hi, Elise.
Oh, Lisa's on the screen too. All right, good. Okay, well,
I don't know why, no, it's just. So I can just cancel out of that.
Okay, it should be on our,
Text working.
it's there.
Here's the town.
It's there, thank you.
Breaking it overshadowed by the truck.
Government
We
contract.
tried.
Oh,
Super thrilling.
okay, are we after 4 o'clock?
no.
Nope.
No.
We're at 4 o'clock.
3:59. There's now 4.
I'm a girl, no.
Night.
Okay, good afternoon.
Oh,
No, sorry.
Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the town council, the special town council meeting of this date, 5th of March 2024, for the sole purpose of considering a resolution by the town council in response to Utah Department of Transportation's Blue Cotton Canyon environmental impact. And I think it should read study, not statement. So, first it changed. Okay, this was issued by, the record of decision was issued some time ago, and here to decide on whether or not we, the town council, should issue a resolution concerning it. And if so, what the content of that resolution should be. We have a draft resolution which has been widely circulated and is available online and for those of us in the room. So with that introduction, I'd like to open the floor for discussion. We'll start here.
I'm not starting.
You're not starting. You're on, would you like to start?
I'm not afraid to say those words.
I'm not afraid to start. I just want to make sure that I'm playing by the, that I am appropriate. So Jen, you can knock me down at any point. Or Roger. So reading through this, the basic premise of it, I really liked. I like that it started addressing Elise's concerns, which I think are our relationship with UDOT. So I thought that that was well stated. I then have some very particular points as we go down, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go down this point by point or how the meeting is going to go forward.
Let's ask for kind of an introductory statement by Elise and John as well.
Great.
John, you're up. You want to say?
You know, I have a couple of overall, I'm okay with the letter and I could probably just sign it. You know, I'm not a big fan of sending the letter, as I've said at some of the other meetings. I hate to see us just become part of a chorus of people saying the same thing to UDOT, the same thing that they've been ignoring. And I also think we'd be somewhat better served if we focused on things that were going to directly impact the snake as it is today. You know, we don't have them agreeing firmly to a evaluation period at the end of 1 and 2, but they don't have the funding for 3. Presumably that's going to lead to more public discussion. And I think to the extent that we can advocate for actions that obfuscate the need for the gondola in the future by better managing the snake today, I think that we're well served to do so.
Can I make a comment? Is it John's volume or our volume? That's the issue.
Am I too loud?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, and usually you're so well spoken, so I can't tell if it's us or you.
I can hear you fine, John, but I'm so not sure.
Well, Elise.
I can hear John's voice coming from over here. so
Yeah, it's
over here.
weird. I can hear Elise really well, but John is just like.
Oh, we're getting
Testing,
audio.
1 2, testing 1 2.
I think it's on, I think that our audio is output is low. I think we need to turn the volume up on one of our actual physical devices, TV or whatever.
I would appreciate that.
Speakers, whatever speakers are active over there.
It's coming out of here and it's, I think, as low as it can be.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I can hear everything John's saying without streaming.
You want me to just run the last part again? So, I'm okay with the letter, and I think it'll bring a certain amount of peace and closure, and I think that there's some need within the community to express our feelings about the gondola, so, I want to try to be supportive, and I could sign this letter today if we had to. Overall, though, I'm worried about us just joining the chorus of angry people out there that they're successfully ignoring, and so, it's a little bit of a Hobson's choice. I'm not super thrilled with I know Margaret voiced some concern about embracing phase 2, and also I read the Save Our Canyons lawsuit recently, and they're not in favor of phase 2, or at least they're withholding judgment on phase 2. I did notice that this sentence, the first yellow sentence, is is kind of out of the Save Our Canyons lawsuit. So that's interesting. And then my last comment, I guess, would be on section 2, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. The council urges the UDOT to suspend all consideration to construct the proposed gondola of Little Cottonwood Canyon. I still find that sentence really awkward. Maybe somebody who is an English major or something could help me, but it doesn't seem like it's English to me.
What part is awkward?
Like consideration of construction or constructing or something. I don't know. It just seems like an awkward usage of tense, and it's also the meat of our whole thing. I mean, really what we're doing here is expressing opposition to the gondola. So I think that's important to get this paragraph right, and maybe it needs to be a couple of sentences instead of just one. And then my one last comment is, we did embrace a little bit of what Mike Long put in his letter to us and what Mike's been saying about the Snowbird merger and our sort of inherent disadvantage, and that's leading to unfair conditions for his customers. I see the bullet point above here that mentions that. I think we could embrace that a little more fully, and I could see that paragraph becoming another sentence or two longer as well. So those are my 2 comments.
I have to tell you that the section 2 sentence was written by an engineer who are known for having very poor writing skills. So let's turn it over to Elise for some opening remarks.
I mean, I like that we outline some things, that we can, I'm reading it on my phone here. But I like that we outline some things that we can do possibly now. Or in the meantime, we talk about the bypass road and the main line, the traction law. We talk about just kind of the different merge points for Snowbird a little bit, but it seems like in addition to Mike Mon, I was just reading some of the other comments that Molly's forwarded on to us. It seems like there were some other people in addition to Margaret that also just really said, let's also focus on things that we can do now, or things that we like. Let's just not write something that says, no gondola, but let's just focus it a little bit like on what other actions can we do now. And I think I agree with John. I don't want to have another resolution where we sound like Salt Lake City or Salt Lake County, or I want this to be unique to us in Little Cottonwood Canyon. And I think we're getting that way. I know we kind of reference, we say something about notes and supports many specific measures articulated in Salt Lake County Mayor Wilson's letter. I don't think we need to have that in there, but we're not Salt Lake City. So part of me kind of wants to just be like, they submitted their thing, let's submit ours and not reference that. But because it seems like everybody keeps quoting that letter in all their resolutions. But those are just my comments for right now.
Let me say something. I feel that the town has an obligation to take a clear stand on this matter, because we're the entity which is most affected by this idea. And we're at the tip of the spear. So I think that, silence to me is not a very good option, but a statement is. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay,
Dan didn't give up very much.
oh, you're right.
I will say something now.
Oh, good.
I agree with everything that we've all said collectively. I think what's critical is we're not staking out a position that puts us in opposition to our valued partners, UDOT, et cetera. And I agree with Elise. I think it's, to your point, Mayor, I think we frame our arguments for and against the various things that we want to propose, against the gondola, for some mitigating proposals for the red snake, et cetera. And one of which I'm a fan of, it's not, I don't believe I've seen written down the same way, which is, I believe in the 100% traffic direction as an attempted mediation for a couple hours. Something to explore. But I think we don't need to frame it in terms of what other people are putting down, either by lawsuits or letters from these other communities. I think your unique voice, even if it's written in engineerese, would be better than logging on with everybody else.
And I agree with the main point that we've been silent too long, and I think that we need to express something.
Yeah, people are looking to us to do that,
Absolutely.
as evidenced by all the people who addressed us last week.
We have to send something.
Yeah, we owe it to them.
Yeah.
But we're also looking for them. They can be passionate about something. We have responsibilities as a staff and elected officials to safeguard our citizens and provide our services. That doesn't allow us to just do whatever else we'd like.
But I also like Elise's point. At first, I thought, oh, that's great, rah, rah, we agree with Jenny Wilson. And then I was like, oh, you know what, you are right, we are unique. So let's just.
I just want to point out that you guys made it clear you wanted that reference in the resolution.
That was
a couple successive meetings. That was like, that was one of the only points of agreement on what statement the town council wanted to make. So if we don't take it out at this point.
Until today.
But that's why it's in, because we were asked expressly to include.
In no way does this reflect on,
I will not take it.
just so you know.
It's interesting just hearing it articulated by Elise, maybe.
Well, and I think that letter that she put out, it was like it was like that first, statement that came out about the gondola, and everyone kind of latched onto it, all the different municipalities and organizations. And it's a great statement. And I think for a while we were kind of embracing it. But now that I feel like everybody else has just been saying the same thing, I feel like this is our opportunity to try to just say something that's unique and what's important to us, what matters to our town, what things do we want to see implemented? Everybody knows that letter. I don't know if we need to reference it in our resolution. I think maybe we were embracing it for a little while, but now I just feel like things have gone pretty far with other people's in their statements. I feel like we can just kind of draft our own here and say what we want to say.
I do propose that we drop that.
I see a certain incongruity with having it, and I love that letter. For me, that letter is still like probably the smartest thing that's been written so far. But I was a little troubled by the fact that we were sort of citing that letter, but then in section 2, we're advocating a different answer. We sort of drifted a little far from the shore. If we're going to embrace Jenny Wilson's letter, then I think we should embrace the idea that the thing to push forward is an evaluation period. But we're not pushing for an evaluation period. We're saying no gondola. And so that's really not consistent with Jenny's letter. So maybe that's yet another reason to strike a reference to the letter. Because I think we want to do more than just, it seems like the powers that be, or us, are now want to go ahead and push for no gondola, no further consideration of the gondola, as opposed to let's do phase 1 and phase 2 and then have a thoughtful evaluation, which is really what Jenny Wilson's letter said. So I don't think we should have both in the same letter.
That's a good point. That this comes right out and puts it in plain engineering language.
It's still very clear.
The that this body is against further consideration of gondola. But it also, I feel, says, let's try a bunch of stuff and keep working on this problem because it's a serious problem. And we're not dismissing the problem, we're dismissing this element of the solution.
I just want to ask a question. Is it safe to say that the town's united position is opposed to the gondola?
All five of us have said that
Right.
when we ran for
So-
office, all five of us said that we were against the gondola publicly.
Right, so what I think what that allows us to do is to make a declaration like this, that allows us to stake out that turf, and then, to your point, Mayor, we continue to address the challenges that we have to solve the best we can.
I'm not an English major, but I could make one sentence that says, the council urges UDOT to suspend consideration of
Further consideration?
Oh, you orient me in. Yep, section two.
Just for everybody's sake, I mean, I have a Word document up and if you guys want to start, I don't know if you want to start making edits or if you want me to do that, but I can start.
Let's do it over here. See if we can't get this thing done.
Yeah.
Are we all in agreement that we just want to be anti-gondola? Because I probably am still on the shore trying to decide to get on the raft there. I'm probably in the camp of, I think we should have a thoughtful consideration of the circumstance and facts after they complete phase 1 and phase 2. And so I have a little less need to see the word gondola leave the discussion. But maybe the rest of you all are anti-gondola and we just want to march forward.
I'd like to leave
Elise,
that.
how do you feel about it?
I'm a little bit more like you, John. I'm more like focused on phase 1 and phase 2. But I'm not, like I said, I've mentioned before that the gondola is not my favorite, but at the same time, the way the EIS is written, and it's kind of written and tied up with phase 1 and phase 2. So part of me, I don't know I mean, we could say we are not in favor of the gondola phase. But I don't want us to just come out and say no gondola. I feel like we do need to address phase 1 and phase 2. I mean, there are other things in this EIS besides the gondola. I mean, there's like the tolling issue. We have no idea how tolling would affect our town, so we could do a couple things. We could make this a big resolution that addresses the whole EIS in general, phase 1, phase 2, how it affects our town. We could do a resolution that's very specific about the gondola. And we could do another resolution that talks about phase 1 and phase 2. But part of me doesn't think we should just have a anti-gondola. I feel like there's a lot more to this EIS that we need to say as a town. And our wishes or how we want to see it go forward. Because again, this EIS wasn't just a gondola. I mean, tolling could be a huge thing for us, whether you're good or bad. I have no idea how it will play out. So again, we could do either way. If we want to just pass a simple no gondola resolution, great. But I do think we still need to address phase 1 and phase 2 somewhere. Or we could draft one big one. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what would you expect the business community to do if the town of Elton makes a statement?
Hey, Mike, could you come are you at the podium? John and I can sort of hear you, but not hear you.
Who is that speaking? Oh,
I think it's Mike.
Couple things, one is, I would suggest the red snake is not an UDOT EIS issue because it wasn't addressed in UDOT EIS. And I think we have an opportunity to say, there's $42 million that was allocated in 2000, it was 150 million, was allocated in 2018 to address hotspots in Little Canyon. There's 42 million left that hasn't been spent on EIS. Can we get the Utah Transportation Commission to allocate some of that money to deal with the red snake issue? Outside of the EIS. If we tie in with the EIS, it's tied up for years. If we can ask them to address those hotspots per the legislation that was passed and try to fix the red snake, I think there's an opportunity for us to do that outside of tying it into the EIS, which would be beneficial. So that's the first. Second question I have is, you know, if the town of Alpha comes out supportive of the gondola, what do you expect the business community to do
I mean, if it comes out against the gondola.
against them?
Yeah, you said it's.
Oh, I'm.
You did, I was
Side
like,
note.
wow.
Hypothetical.
That's no. And
Yeah,
the opposite,
I got
if the town comes up and says, yeah, we're opposed to the gondola, you know, where does that put the Alpha business community?
Okay.
Because we then may have to issue a statement on our own, the opposite of that. Right? Because we need transportation to be fixed somehow. Well, that's just the point of record.
But I think that's okay. It's,
That's fine,
yeah,
that's fine.
It doesn't mean it's,
No, you can say the town of Alpha,
right,
you know, the governmental body in the town of Alpha has decided this.
because we're definitely pro-business.
Yeah, and if you might make Alpha a more pleasant place if we focused on fixing the road and not
That's-
having a gondola that
Well,
ruined our
that-
beautiful
but-
community.
Correct, but we can try to fix the road and those things without having to come, I mean, the gondola is so far down the line. There's plenty of time, you can still come out and say, we're opposed to it. But to keep things working and positive with UDOT, if we focus our efforts on trying to fix the issues we can, let the rest of that play out a little further before you weigh in, because you can weigh in later. What do you gain by weighing in now? Question that I ask.
I think there's an answer to that.
I do too. What's your answer?
My answer is, I think the spirit of the town and the vast majority of our constituents have all expressed that, and they would like the town government, I think, to weigh in as well. And as stated by Carolyn, all members who either have run on that platform or stated publicly that we're opposed to the gondola as part of the solution. But there are many other solutions, to Lisa's point.
And there's different ways, like the word oppose versus suspend consideration.
And that's fine. That's a little softer.
Yeah.
And, you know, make sure point. But yeah, as long as, you know, it's just still needs to be a consideration if we go for everything and we get to a point, we can't find a better solution. It seems like it's still something that's in the best interest. I mean, there are pros to it. There's things that people are concerned about. But it takes the road out of the equation. It gives us emergency ingress and egress. There's a lot of pluses. But if we can't resolve some other way, it'd be great to find a solution that addresses them all, because, you know, the gondola addresses some things. It's not a fix all, as we know, it doesn't fix the red snake. So how do we find that right balance?
I think it would extend this meeting well into the future if we started weighing the pros and cons of exactly what the solution is. So I think we ought to just focus on a resolution.
Is it appropriate that Mr. Mon submitted, public comments that I really,
I'm not aware of those.
okay.
Maybe they were just, I didn't see. this one.
I just thought the comments that Mike's sent us were well thought out and reasoned, and I'd like to see us, as I said a minute ago, I'd like to see us sort of embrace them a little more closely in these bullet points.
So I didn't know if while he's standing there, we could review some of his comments and add some of them to this resolution or not, because I really appreciated what you have to say, Mike.
And I just, my question is, you don't link them. I think it's appropriate to recognize that they're not addressed by the EIS, so that we can try to address them outside the EIS. Because that's the chance we have to maybe move them forward and get them addressed. Because I think the EIS is tied up for quite a while. And if we
Yeah, I
can-
know it is.
If we can keep these outside the EIS, maybe get them addressed, I think it's in our best interest.
Well, the thing you said that really got my attention is by untethering this remaining $42 million, you have access to that, not me, but the community in partnership with UDOT, and we can start to allocate that. I'm a big fan of spending government money that's already been allocated.
So that has been,
To our benefit.
it's been allocated, you know, the commission now is allocated to phase one.
Mhm.
But that's not what was initially allocated for by the legislature, it was to
Okay.
fix issues in the canyons. So I'd like to pull that money back in and get it to address hotspots in the canyon, if we can.
I missed that because I didn't see that in your comment.
I didn't put in.
Okay.
No, not more,
I was-
but
I was definitely
his
gonna-
comments were all really well thought out and added, I thought, to some of what the proposal was here.
So do you want that comment to be included in the record for this meeting?
Sure. Sure, you can read that comment if you like.
Someone will have to share.
Should I,
She has a New Jersey copy, yes. We get comments from all.
should I,
Yeah, no, the people just ask.
do I show it to you when you read it, or how does it work?
Comment?
Yeah.
Well, I think we've gotten the outcome.
Okay.
I mean, it's very-
No, it's specific, you know, there's specific things.
I did the others as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, we'd be happy to include.
Let's go back to what the composition of the resolution is.
Which was the purpose of the.
Yes, exactly. So, I appreciate Mike's comments and those and others that are in here. The question to me is, to what extent, do we want to modify this, document? Or not?
I have some piece things.
Okay,
Line by line. So the first thing, the mandatory traction law, and I thought that says, oh, sorry. So I thought
first
the
bullet.
initial part of it, I didn't have any problems with page 1, but page 2, when you start the council notes and supports, the first bullet point.
Yeah.
Why can't we have mandatory traction law from November 1st to May 1st?
Or, yeah,
Or request stature.
Or request that? Do you know?
Well, reportedly because Governor Cox is against it.
Governor Cox is a supporter. Don't say it against that.
Okay,
Oh, really? I thought Governor Cox was against the traction law and requiring four-wheel drive all winter. No?
It's a, so last year, we were having the challenges we were having, and the way that they were applying the current traction rule was the road had to become slick before you turned on the lights.
Yeah.
And
Too late.
we had approached Governor Cox and said, that's too late, doesn't make sense, here's the issues. Can we get the lights turned on when there's a forecast for snow? And he
Great.
asked you not to do that, and they started doing that last year. They did that last Saturday when we had the storm and helped reduce traffic. So he understands that he was supportive of that. But UDOT has said this law applies to all of the roads in the state of Utah that have the traction law. And so they have to try to apply something consistently. And so we've been asking UDOT to administratively, or if legislatively we do that, can we make a law or a requirement that's specific to the cotton canes? It says, and my proposal would be, when there's snow in the forecast, then the lights go on, and the lights say, you must have a vehicle that has a UDOT sticker on it in the canyon. And that you spend some of that $42 million and put a little shed down there in the park and ride where someone that shows up and doesn't have the sticker can go in and get a sticker. They have the right vehicle. And then we use a third party to check the stickers at the parking lots. And if you don't have a sticker, you get a one-time warning, and if not, it's like $150, $200 fine. And we don't impact the flow of traffic. We let UDOT administer issuing stickers and go there. That's the idea. I finally have kind of figured out how to make it work for everybody. And take it to, we want to take that to UDOT and say, here's the way to do this. Because the issues have been, how do you enforce it? How do you deal with people who just showed up today? And kind of put all those pieces together. So we'd like to see something like that implemented. I think it could be, and it would work great. It still would not deal with, the person that is from Iowa that rented a four-wheel drive, has the right vehicle, but does not know how to negotiate the weather. But on the other side of that things, you know, some other transportation alternative for them, buses, gondola, whatever it is, would help with those people down the road, because they would love to not drive the vehicle. But if we could focus on the first half, I think it would make a big difference.
But I think those, for us, from a resolution standpoint, the details of that program or an exception by the legislature for Little Cottonwood or both Cottonwood Canyons. That does come later. Right now, for a resolution, I do believe the spirit of what you're saying, Carolyn, should be in that.
Yeah,
And
it's
we're
like-
requesting this because this is our resolution to get us what we need
Right,
in the hopes, in the spirit of what.
exactly. So I didn't know if there was
ASL
something we could do to support Mike's proposal more or a rendition of that further, was what I was trying to, to me, this isn't needy enough.
So can you give that to Jim? Do you know what you had to say for that?
I just want to interject and let you know, we're getting some input from folks who are participating in the meeting remotely, who, you know, we've kind of opened the meeting up for input beyond just discussion from you would like to participate. So we recommend that you let those folks have an opportunity to.
Okay, how do we do that?
I know Pat Shea would like to make a comment first, Molly, and then we can open it up to everybody else. And maybe we'll just do our normal public comment.
Okay.
Advisement of trying to keep it to 3 minutes if we can.
Yeah, is Pat, online?
All right, now Mike is unmuted. Very quick comment.
We hear you, Pat, but it's, oh. Try
It's-
again.
A quick comment about UDOT. They have been, in my mind, disingenuous by saying that the lawsuits have stopped them from doing anything on phase one, which is incorrect. We met with Carlos, told him that we were not seeking injunctive relief. And I think most lawyers make things more complicated than they need to be. So with your resolution, why not just do 2 and 3 paragraph and then perhaps send a letter to the governor from the town council, including the first portion about what you're doing to support Mike and his effort.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay,
Does anybody else from the, in the attendee group, if you want to raise your hand, we can allow you to speak. There should be a menu at the bottom of your screen that pops up, where you can click on the hand.
okay, with respect to Mike's comment about, the traction law and the stickers and pulling off and getting checked and so forth, I feel that's way too detailed to put in something like this. In fact, those ideas will evolve. And so I think the general idea that we, support mandatory traction laws, is what we should have in this resolution. And we may want to even cut down the first bullet a little bit if it's too detailed already. So,
Mounted on the vehicles,
yeah, well,
chains in the vehicle.
so, okay, so I'd like to, if we want to, we want to shorten the first bullet a little bit, like getting rid of the shall be mounted, or, saying that all vehicles must have approved traction control devices. Not rid of that.
Can I add one more thing there? So one of the issues we're trying to address is UDOT itself is challenged a little bit with the idea of saying every day from November 1st to May 1st.
Yeah,
And so that's why we've kind of moved to whenever there's snow in the forecast. I don't know if you want to state that, or just say,
well, the trouble is, if somebody comes up here and stays for a few days and is
correct, I understand,
not equipped,
I understand.
and then it snows, then we've got trouble.
Who's the forecasting authority?
Well, that's why I'm a fan of the blanket statement.
Me
It's
too.
this date to
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
I like the bullet point the way it's written, honestly. I think it's just about right.
From the dates. I
yeah,
agree.
just, it's always.
And I also, moving up to the paragraph that introduces the bullets, Jen, so page 2.
Are we all, I've made an edit, I just wanted, are we moving on from this edit and everybody is good with that?
I'd like to just leave first bullet as is.
Okay, so you were the one that just suggested an edit to it.
Yeah, you.
Roger, if
Yeah.
I make a quick comment, not as far as.
Citizen.
Over there. Yeah, it's.
Citizen Craig.
Yeah, very simply, I think that one of the most important points that Mike raised is that there are a number of activities that do not require an EIS. And I think if you included language that focused on the short-term congestion problems, because whether the gondola is built or not built, it's not going to be built anytime soon. And we've got a major congestion problem now. And I think including language that says that we want to focus on some solutions that address the congestion problems in the very near future and do not require an EIS statement, including but not limited to things like the traction law and then a few other bullet points. I think that covers the essence of what Mike is saying without getting into the specifics.
Yeah.
Can I ask Craig a question? Craig, has your position changed with regard to the gondola itself? My recollection is your position was one of wanting to have the data in a thoughtful period of evaluation after 1 and 2 were done. Have you now moved to the point where you just think the word gondola needs to leave the room, or are you still in the camp of
Yes,
thoughtful evaluation after phase 1 and 2? Because to me, that seems a little bit more inclusive. It's at least recognizing that if it's still a disaster after we've done all this stuff, then maybe there is a role for the gondola. And I think that would kind of bridge some of the gaps here.
my personal position has shifted on that, John, but let me tell you why. It's because the cost keeps escalating. Now, if I look at the latest stuff coming from UDOT, the cost is closer to $1 billion. If I look at the cost that's coming from the Wasatch Regional Front Commission, they're estimating 1.4. And I've moved from let's evaluate things at the end of phase 1 and maybe part of phase 2 to the fact that this is so expensive that I am very sure that we can find other solutions that are a lot more cost effective before considering the gondola. And my fear is that by focusing on the gondola, we don't consider those alternatives.
Thoughtful comment. Thank you.
So, going back to edits on this, I, in the spirit of what we said, I also agree, we don't have to frame it in terms of what, Mayor Wilson's letter says. So on page 2, second paragraph begins the council notes. I think you can delete all the way down to we request and start that with we request and just in order to try and move our resolution forward. I don't think we have to put there, but these are still our requests that are bulleted below it, and we need to introduce those requests. So if you just start with we request that UDOT implement additional measures in both, it simplifies that paragraph and gets rid of that. Yep, right there, and just capitalize we.
Agree.
So
Okay.
copy editor, Dan.
Yeah, okay.
I think in your point about shortening bullet point 1, so when enhanced traction law is in effect, I think I understand there's some complications with this, but are we as a council saying, because these are frankly just what we would support.
Yeah.
I know Dan supports and I support that it should just be mandatory traction law from November 1st to May 1st, whether that's realistic or not, it's just what the council's coming forward with. Do you have something, you're leaning forward like you have something to say too?
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
So let's just take out sentence 2.
Take out sentence 2.
When enhanced traction laws in effect, because all of us think
Okay.
that it should be, like, why make a choice about it? I mean, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
And
And to what ASL brought to our attention, the tourists aren't gonna pick up on that. They don't even know what the signs mean when they're flashing. They just blow right past. So I think it's a better blanket approach. anyway, it's just a resolution.
Are we allowed to put a bullet point? Can we use my 42 million? I know it's not like funny, but are we allowed to suggest that in this proposal and?
I would think you should be able to go out, so I don't know.
No, so I'll say that, actually. I think we should incorporate wording, and even if we don't know what it is today, and we can't finish the resolution, we should incorporate
The idea.
of utilizing this money and untethering it from the EIS in order to help address the congestion in Little Cottonwood Canyon, which is really what we want to do.
Maybe that should be bullet point 1.
Already allocated, funding already allocated to Little Cottonwood.
That's right, and I think you identified,
Hotspots, recreation hotspot fund.
and can we, Chris, can we frame that in terms of, I'd like to see the dollar figure in there? Because it puts a little bit more concrete.
Yeah, I mean, I bet Mike has done his homework, in
There's some homework
what that
involved.
funding is and is not, but
So I don't, based on that, I don't think we'll be able to finish this resolution today, but I think it's important enough to put in there that we have that, because I think this is access to money that can concretely help us address issues regardless of what the EIS is doing,
Look at
or beyond whatever it is.
so. I mean, do we?
Jen, you're crushing it right now. Just saying.
What those changes are, I mean, does the council value those kinds of, interventions more than the enhanced bus service?
We're not waiting them. All we're doing is saying, as a town, we would like this money that has been allocated, that is probably available, to start addressing these issues.
Mike, is this 42 million distinct from the 150 that was in the?
It's the 150, it's the 218 bill or whatever.
2018.
2018. And, this is left over.
42 is from the 2018 bill that created the fund.
The 150.
Which was
Under-
to address, if we look at the language of the bill, it was to address transportation hotspots and Little Cottonwood Canyon specifically.
Is one, right, Moab, Bear Lake, Little Cotton Canyon.
Yeah, but we don't care about those people.
But see, nothing, from my standpoint, yeah, we've spent some money on the EIS, but none of that money has been spent to actually address the hotspot in Little Cottonwood.
That's because it's an S, there's an S at the end of that, yeah.
So, could you, suggestion, take this resolution, say, something to the effect, we request you to use some of this $42 million as allocated for the bill or whatever to address these issues.
Not even some of it. We would like to start addressing, utilizing
Yeah.
all
To
40
address
million.
these issues that are not addressed
Yeah.
in the EIS.
Right, so,
And that's,
We're gonna respond to this input. Thusly, right? Is that good enough for now? You trust us to go back and do some homework about?
yeah, I think so. And I'll happily come over and chat.
and I think this addresses Alta's community spirit and Alta's uniqueness and a positive spin of what.
Mike Moore would be proud, that we were talking
He's
about.
online.
Oh, he is.
He was.
He's not gonna say anything. But, yeah, I think we can wordsmith that line that you just put in, Jen. I think there's some easy language to put in there to capture that, because I think this is something that can concretely affect the canyon positively in the near future, almost immediate future. Okay, that's a really great, and I'm really hip on that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, we have an added bullet, and we have a short bullet. How about the next bullet, undertake various efforts to mitigate congestion? That's kind of on the, with the, congestion, but
To me, that's part of the $42 million to
Well, and Mr. Mon separated those in his letter to us. So if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you separate those two fairly distinctly, sir, and you say that we need to do something about the merging with the bird, but then we need to do something with keeping 210 open. And I assume that you have somebody has a dollar figure for the snow sheds, and that's like not happening for 210.
The initial, feedback from Utah was UDOT was looking at 110 million or something like that for those snow sheds.
Just in that one little section.
Well, from Hellgate all the way to entry 4, I think there's some options where you could maybe use some other mitigation measures to shorten that, but that work has not been done to determine that. It at least is worth the study.
But it doesn't inhibit us from accessing this 42 million and saying, we'd still like that debt, because we can then approach our legislative body above us.
And I think Carolyn's point was, is, you could separate that bullet into keeping the main line open as one, and the other one is addressing a more equitable merge of Alton Snowbird.
Because I think they are very separate.
They are.
Yeah, they are separate.
In that, because I was thinking even today, when I was thinking about the merge, I assume that you've explored redirecting entry one and how you could make it so that it, nobody can come on entry. And that was what you wrote about the sticky thing that they put in the road.
Well, I've looked at a lot of different things, and we have to respect Snowbird and their right to control and manage their traffic. And so really, I've boiled it down to help us find a way to allow Alta traffic to merge with Snowbird traffic below entry one. One. Whether it's adding a third lane, whether it's whatever. But the point that I would like to push with you on is, let's just make this equitable for two businesses and the people out of the canyon. And you've got a town up here too, and emergency service and public transit and all that stuff. And if we can keep it an equitable merge, not a 7-to-1 or 500-to-1 or whatever it may be, based on conditions, that seems like a hot spot for us, and something we should try to address.
That's a good, that's a good way of thinking about the
When you
money.
keep tying things back to hot spots and the money, then maybe we'll get a chance to get. Who knows?
Well, even outside of this, the efforts by the mayor's office, go down to the governor's office and.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Should we have a separate bullet point for this merge point? Separate from the undertake to the second bullet point, the undertake various efforts to mitigate congestion?
That's what my
Really kind of
note-
two separate, they're really kind of two separate things.
Yeah,
They are very much, and I do like Mike's additional point of the emergency services. I mean, we've had some interesting things from the clinic, just trying to get patients down, and that does create a sticky point.
but as a town, we're responsible for public safety.
We are.
To mitigate this threat, which is what it is, to public safety,
Yes,
which is life and limb.
yes.
It's not just a winter problem with Snowbird. I mean, we all know last summer on the weekends, you couldn't get a fire truck through Snowbird during Oktoberfest, no matter what you wanted to do. So, I mean, some things aren't just winter related, but maybe if we had some other way of egress out of town past Snowbird, it could help us in the summertime as well.
And as I look at the last three bullets, again, I think what John had said earlier, which he's happy with, signing, and I think Carolyn's the same. I think we can leave those in there without wordsmithing that too much, and all three of those work.
I would suggest you just issues you're trying to address with the bill and the issues that are in the EIS. So uncouple them.
The bill?
In the
bill is the allocated.
The allocated money, here's how we want you to consider using it. In regards to the EIS, move the tolling things, make it gondola thing, or whatever you want to say about EIS, just have another little header that separates the two. So because if you say up front,
I hear what you're
we
saying.
want you to do these things that are in the EIS, they said, well, the EIS is on hold, it's in the lawsuit, so we're not gonna look at that section.
So does that become a section unto itself? So we have 4 sections in the end. Does that make sense? Are you tracking that? Okay, cool.
Chris and I.
Of course, yeah.
We'll
You're
work
Jen.
together on it.
See what's going up there now. I mean,
This is a note about what he just said.
all right.
That'll cue us staff in later.
I also thought the 2 points about tolling, we haven't really discussed, I think as a town, whether we think tolling is a good idea. I think, like, we're saying, hey, the idea of putting tolling in the middle of the canyon is like ridiculous, in my opinion. And then of course, we need to have delivery vehicles and there needs to be some kind of difference. But there's no introduction to that tolling that says, hey, the town about they would like to propose tolling. Please.
Tolling, from our perspective, tolling does not manage traffic. The intent of tolling is to put more people in their cars. In theory, you're gonna reduce the cars on the road, but there's nowhere that's the issue. Stated, we found that just parking reservations is pretty occupancy. We're concerned that tolling snows 2 feet, tolling does nothing. Everybody will pay $150 to go to a toll and come see if it snowed 2 feet. They're all still gonna use time. But if you have a limited supply of parking, there's only so much parking. So that limits it. So we're concerned that tolling doesn't really accomplish what they're trying to accomplish with that. I think
However,
we're doing.
one thing I would add to that, in the spirit of what you're talking about, you still need to be able to control that traffic if you are basing the maximum occupancy in the canyon on parking reservations, and say we get snowbird on our line, to some extent. It would still benefit the canyon's traffic congestion to have some check measure at the mouth or earlier than the mouth to help prevent people who do the big cut of the canyon thing, which they drive all the way up there and find they can't park and they're just adding to congestion. If they know that before they get here or before they enter the canyon, I think that helps with that. Now, that's not tolling per se.
So we're trying to communicate the message when we're full.
Right.
And we have found, in our reservation system, we know we're going to have some people show up. It's less than 10 a day. We show up that don't have a reservation, even on a busy day, that come up. So we've gotten to the point, so last Thursday, we filled the canyon on a non-reservation day in terms of the cars for an hour and a half. Yeah. First time in the last 3 years. It just showed you it snowed and people came and they knew there wasn't reservations, and so they kind of overran us. Whereas we've had other days, we've had reservations, we have not gotten overrun. So they have not come because they've known there's not parking. And so it's that, and prior reservations, you always say the canyon's full, but they still came on that chance that someone was leaving and they should get that spot.
But I think there's a part of this that can be addressed, perhaps it's in this or not, by signage as well, that informs people. If you do not have a reservation, the canyon is closed to you today. I'm not saying the public doesn't have access to the great lands of across the sea.
I think those signs exist, right?
One way to do this, and I think that's part of the spirit of what you're doing, we have to get them to understand that they can't come up because there is no chance.
Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple though, Dan, because there's no chance until 1 o'clock. And it's not the people that come up in the morning and have reservations that are still there at 4 o'clock and are dying in the Red Snake. It's the second shift. It's the people that come up between 1 and 2 and want to get some skiing and they didn't get a reservation. And, it's really a whole nother shift, of skiers showing up. And those are the people that are still there at 4 o'clock at 4:30 that are all waiting to leave at the same time.
But in my mind, that is addressable still by improved signage. The signage we have now is not prominent enough. And we're not going to solve all those here today, but I think there's a blend of all of these things that will help mitigate some pretty significant problems we have with people who are just a car in the canyon and never got out.
Mike, if I could just interject for a second. I agree with everything you said about tolling as it was written in the EIS. But in my opinion, the tolling that is written in the EIS is not very thoughtful. First, it's mid-canyon. That's dumb, all right? Secondly, there are ways to use tolling technology to do most of the things that you're talking about and more. So for example, traction loss stuff can be enforced through a tolling gate so that we don't have to have people enforcing it. Secondly, tolling can be used to have escalating charges for low occupancy cars, which is not the kind of technology that they have proposed in the current tolling thing. And thirdly, I think tolling can be used to help us figure out what is the right balance between charging and it could be used for time entry, which might actually be really important for giving buses and, for example, workers, the ability to get up without the red snake on the way up. So I think tolling, my point is, tolling as it's in the EIS is not the only type of tolling technology that's available. And I think many of the solutions you're talking about, including reservations, could actually be done through tolling technology, just not the way it's written in the EIS.
So let me add to that, and I think I can help bring this together under an umbrella, because sometimes when we say tolling, people are actually talking about entry control. to some
Yes.
extent, which is what you.
Which is the
proposed with
reservation.
Traction sticker compliance in the parking lot. In my opinion, I think there are three things that fall under entry control to the canyon. One is tolling, if, or whether we do that or not can be a separate thing. Reservation verification, and then traction compliance. All three of those things fall under entry control in my opinion. And I think that's an umbrella, and it's gonna require some wordsmithing, but I think that's one thing we should talk about, because I think you brought up, Mike, is important on the sticker thing. To facilitate certification of your car, because we don't want to go to some other place, helps facilitate the right kind of vehicles coming into the canyon and that sort of stuff. But traction compliance, to keep that one tourist from Iowa from jackknifing somewhere and stopping everything, is part of that as well. And then if tolling comes in, that entry control becomes that same spot you do it. Maybe it's that parking lot, maybe it's somewhere else. It's certainly not Mid Canyon. But I think this is something we should maybe put in this, Mayor.
Okay, well, let me.
John Goldner asked to use Ohio instead of.
We can,
No, my neighbor drives a giant Toyota Tundra and he jackknifed, in the entry one, median lane there and back up traffic for an hour, so.
do you have Ohio plates?
Okay,
I don't know,
here's my thought on tolling. It is a theoretical, untried concept that we really don't know what the effects will be. I mean, the idea is, the goal, of course, is entry control. But will it work for that? I don't know. I mean, my point is that if the skiing is good enough and you are passionate enough, you're gonna shell it out to get there. So, we simply don't have, in my opinion, enough information to give a really good statement on tolling.
I agree, Mayor.
I think that having it as, it now has two bullet points, but perhaps summing it as one bullet point that says, we support exploring the concept of tolling as a way to control entry or checking traction devices or something like that. Because this is really what we're doing, is it's a proposal. And it's saying, as a community, we support exploring these other options.
And I propose the way to word that is, town supports improved or increased entry control measures, some of which we have done before. Cops at the bottom checking your tires, that happens.
Mhm.
So I think entry control becomes that thing. And the three categories that fall underneath that are potentially tolling.
Yeah.
But certainly reservation verification to help keep. And that goes back to John's point of, hey, up until 1 o'clock, you better have a reservation. You know, after that, maybe we're not doing entry control. And the third one is that traction compliance, to make sure the wrong kind of cars aren't entering the canyon at the wrong time.
Okay.
Don't know what that looks like, but I think that's the umbrella. That's my proposal to.
Okay, well, where would we work this in, this entry control business?
Or exploring tolling, or however you want it.
Well, totally, it becomes a
South will work it
subset.
out.
Does that make sense, Jen? Do you think that works? Does that become a section by itself, or is that just part of what we have for recommendations?
In the EIS, it should be your EIS section.
Damn it. Okay.
Can I
I
add?
don't know where that fits.
Yeah.
So I also received a really thoughtful letter from another citizen, Margaret Burke. Am I allowed to speak about that?
Yeah.
And she submitted two things that I thought really need to be added to this list. One was no roadside parking, and the second was enhanced bus services. And so I think if we do not, as a town, express a
Endorse
need
those.
for enhanced bus services or roadside parking, we are doing ourselves a disservice.
I agree with that. It's not even increased, it's just returned what we used to get.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
We do need it, when we say no roadside parking, we need to be very specific, because I mean, all of town is a UDOT highway, and we do all of a lot of town parking on the highway. So we just have to be really specific in how we word it, like, are we, we don't want to say no roadside parking, because that kind of impacts us directly in town here. So, I mean, I know what we're saying. We don't want roadside parking on Snowbird, or we don't want roadside parking in certain areas of the canyon, but we just do need a little ccareful on where in town we're talking.
Here's the challenge with roadside parking at Snowbird. It's in their special use permit. It goes back to the roadside, from entry 1 to entry 4 is in the special use permit. They've been able to do it for years. UDOT has kind of told them that if we're gonna change that, it's gotta be replaced somewhere. And so
The number of spots available have to be replaced somewhere.
So in the Forest Service Management Plan, does not have additional parking to be created on the Forest Service land at this point in time. So there's this conundrum that's out there, and I am supportive of, that's been in Snowbird's permit. That's the parking you've been allowed to have. Dayfield and I have talked from time to time, where could you replace that? They have challenges trying to figure out where to replace that parking. But until there is another alternative for them, we have to figure out. You can say no roadside parking below entry for sure, because that was not in their permit. And not, in the forest management plan either. But from entry 1 up to entry 4, it's a significant part of their parking. They'll fight that tooth and nail. And I believe they should be able to either replace that somewhere if we're gonna really promote that it's eliminated. So that would be the fair right thing to do. So maybe something that says working on a solution to replace the roadside parking somewhere else, or something else would be something that could maybe work a little better. I don't know. Acknowledging it's a problem, we should do that.
No, I agree, because and I've had this conversation with Dayfield as well. They're not moving on that position. The reasons that Mike brings up, they don't have anywhere else to move people, and they want their skiers to come. But that goes back to wording that we can put in appropriately, which is compliance with state highway parking law.
Enhanced bus services so that the people that park on the street and are exhausted walking from the street to the ski lift.
Yeah.
Or get into an accident,
Yeah.
pulling out or slowing down on the traffic.
I-
And so if there was a solution so they weren't parked there, I mean, how miserable is it to park on the road with your 2 kids and all their equipment and try to get down to the lift?
Their stuff. Well, yeah, while other cars are going by, I mean, it's breath holding.
Well, it goes back to public safety. However, they have, their permit allows them entry 1 through 4.
Yeah, I see.
But I do think as far as resolution goes, I think it's okay for us to state in our resolution as a town, where we're taking a position on several of these critical matters, that we'd like this explored to greater extent, because there are some things that can do. And you don't want to hit them with a stick. We need to
I think
collaborate.
there's a list of things that could be explored to a greater extent. And, to me, that's what's missing from section 2, the second yellow, would be to say something like, the council urges UDOT to suspend consideration of gondola construction until such time as it has thoughtfully explored, other potential solutions, or other solutions for mitigating the traffic. Because isn't that really what we think? Is that we want to see them explore these other alternatives and these other possible traffic mitigation concepts before they plunge ahead with the $1 billion gondola?
Well, my concern about that is that, if I were Utah, I'd said, okay, we'll spend a year looking at these other things, and, we've checked them out, they don't work, on with the gondola.
I can support
Yeah, but
this over the group, but I do not support the gondola.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to say in a single sentence, I don't support the gondola as a solution to the problems in this canyon. And I support our businesses. We may not be in agreement with that. Not all of our businesses, but our primary business, perhaps. But that doesn't mean we're not gonna work with them if it's gonna be shoved up the canyon.
Yeah,
If the governor and people make it happen and the town is powerless to stop it, that's a different thing.
yeah.
But that's not where we are as a community.
That is not.
Anyone who voted for me told me, the only question they really asked me is, are you pro-gun? I'm not pro-gun.
No,
So I think that, section 2 ought to not have any sort of, caveats.
All right. Okay. That's a stiffer position than we've taken in the past. That's all I'm making sure we're getting. You know, this is us migrating from, we've got an open mind, if nothing else works, okay, to under no circumstance do we want to see a gondola. And I just want to make sure that we're aware that we're actually kind of turning the screw that way, turning the screw to the right.
I think we're just coming out saying the town doesn't support the gondola as a solution to the
well,
climate.
we're saying use that $42 million in a positive manner. Let's work on doing something today to try and change things rather than all this talk and thought and money and anguish over something that's not gonna happen years from now. Let's work on a solution today. And
Yeah,
so
couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's a question of the, you know, do you really need the word gondola to disappear from the lexicon if we're on a path where we're going to explore these other alternatives? I guess I think, you know, it's like a bridge over troubled water. I mean, if you insist on taking the gondola off the table, we won't be, you know, forging a tighter connection with the powers that be. Maybe that's okay, but it's not really a constructive engagement with the other people. You know, I'd be more inclined to just sort of live with the possibility being out there in the distant future and focus on accomplishing the things that'll mitigate the need for the gondola, and that it'll be self-evident that the gondola doesn't need to be built.
And if that's what the town, the majority goes, I'd support that statement with caveats, but I don't think it puts us in opposition to UDOT to work with them in phase 1 and phase 2 to still come out and say, you know, as a town, we don't believe the gondola is part of the solution. I think it's okay to say that.
Maybe we need to put that in there. What you just said about being willing to work with them on phase 1 and phase 2, that's sort of the flip side of the coin. And I could live with that just as easily as something as an antecedent to section 2 sentence. If you want to put a sentence like at the front of this that says, while we support the pursuit of all phase 1 and phase 2 plus the additional measures cited above, the town doesn't approve, you know, doesn't want to see the gondola, then it's a little more
That's kind of what I was saying earlier, is that, you know, like this EIS is more than just a gondola. And so that's kind of what I do like, that idea of having the sentence saying, you know, we support these phases. And it goes a little bit to what Pat Shea was saying a little bit about how, you know, some people are saying that the lawsuits are tying up phase 1 and phase 2, and some people are saying they're not, whatever that is the case. But I do think that phase 1 and phase 2, we've talked as a council how we like those ones. And so I think that, yeah, maybe I kind of like how John was phrasing that we mentioned that as if in the sentence before we talk about the gondola, just kind of wraps the whole EIS up a little bit better together. And just, again, it's not, you know, the EIS is not just a gondola. There's so many other things in it.
and it makes us seem less extreme. It makes us seem more reasonable. Like we're not just being bombastic and closing our mind, and you know, we're going to start jumping up and down on the table if they start to build a gondola. You know what I mean? It makes us seem more thoughtful and reasonable.
Let me try this. Starting with that sentence, Jen, try this. The council supports collaborating with UDOT on phases 1 and 2, or to explore phases 1 and 2, something along those lines.
Excuse the typo for now.
Yeah, typos is fine. Yeah, for the EIS phases 1 and 2.
That's constructive.
But I still think we can conclude with, but the town is not in support of the gondola in phase 3.
Yeah, I think we have to be explicit about it.
Right, that's what, but to John's point and Elisa's point, I think it's really great to lead off with, we're looking forward to collaborating with you on phases 1 and 2 to mitigate, the problems in the canyon. But the town does not support gondola as part of,
A solution.
You know,
phase. And and it also allows us to assuage any concerns of our constituents that we're responsible to, who I think pretty clearly stated, some of them have no problem standing up saying, John, we don't want the gondola under any circumstances. Where's Edward Abbey and the rest of the monkey wrenchers that can destroy this thing? We have a lot of people who fall in that camp. We're not those people, but I think that helps with us to still say that we don't support the gondola as a conclusion of that sentence. Does that work for you guys?
I like section 2 more than I liked it before. In seriousness, I think that's a much more constructive statement than what it said without that.
That was great to put in there because it is a great way to lead off, but we're here in the spirit of collaboration. We all want to work together, which is true.
Right.
Okay, let's go back up to the top and take a look where we are here. These whereases, any problems with those? I don't think so. I haven't heard anybody. Go further up to the top.
Oh, it's just the title.
Yeah, except there shouldn't be impact statement, it should be impact study. Isn't it EIS? Environmental.
It's an environmental impact statement.
Yeah, it's impact statement.
And we're not, I mean,
All right.
we didn't research anything, our study.
All right.
I feel like we've made enough stuff that, looks like there's still quite a bit of wordsmithing that needs to happen in here, especially with our comment about the allocating that money, whatever that dollar amount is. We're past that 5 o'clock mark that we set for the work session. Does it,
Time out?
it's 5:11.
Yeah, I recognize that.
I pretty much knew we weren't going to solve this in one work session, but
Trying.
Yeah.
no, we're doing really, really well.
Does it make sense to have staff wordsmith it and try to have it on the next week's TC agenda?
I think that's the only practical way to go.
I think we're
I
pretty
mean, I
close.
don't think we can pass it today, as Elise was just saying. But I think we've given a lot of input here. And I think the staff could wordsmith this down to a proposed resolution that we could actually consider. I do think at some point we're losing a certain amount of credibility, the fact that we haven't been able to pass something in 5 or 6, 7 months of trying. I do think at some point we need to actually pass something.
I do too.
Well, I think we can make a pledge to try and pass this town meeting.
I think we're so close. I think it's a wordsmithy issue. I think we've collaborated with John and Elise on I think we're doing great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this yellow highlighted section is, one of the things that the mayor recommended the council consider advocating for back in the February meeting. And we haven't discussed it today. Does the council believe that in?
And I'm trying to remember, we were having a discussion that we were worried that phase 1 and phase 2 are going to just be blown through by UDOT and not thought considerably. And is that why you wanted this in here, Roger? I'm trying to remember our discussion.
I'm almost of the opinion that UDOT's attitude is that these are perfunctory. That is, we'll just we'll do them for how should I put it, appearance sake, but where we're really going is the gondola.
I don't think that hurts our resolution at all to leave it in there.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to go into too much circular debate about it. I'd suggest we just leave it as is, and I think it's okay.
I don't have a problem with it.
Can I ask two more questions? No. I have heard that there's a proposal, and we put a very brief line in there that says enhanced bus service.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that we need to, like, you equipped, at least get back to where we were before. And part of Margaret's letter was that I have heard that there's exploration, for I don't want to call it private, but perhaps a UDOT public bus service that would only serve perhaps Little Cotton Canyon and Big Cotton Canyon, that would somehow not necessarily be related to bus drivers in West Valley, and that whether we could have some kind of a different system, and that there was equity from state and there's the money that can be used for that. And then some people are like super anti-bus, and they're like, oh, those big things get in car accidents anyway. Is there any proposal for
Okay, can I say something
smaller
about
bus? Sorry.
with the meeting the last few days
Okay.
about creating a special transit district, which would do just what you're talking about. And there's a model for this in the Park City area. Not clear that how it would work, but there's some exploration along those lines. And that would potentially get us some progress in bus business. It's a very immature idea. So I don't think we're ready to
The gondola is an immature idea.
What Mike's gonna say. Those buses, because of the federal dollars involved, have to prioritize certain things before they get to us.
Yeah.
And that's unchangeable, which is why this is a good proposal. And second is, I think what he's gonna say, it doesn't actually, the bus services don't deliver as many skiers and never have historically as a lot of people aspire them to do.
Smell.
And
Kind of echo what Roger said, there is some exploratory work looking at a special service district, but there are some significant hurdles that have to be overcome as to how this would work. And any bus solution, well, any of these solutions are 2 or 3 of that to implement.
Yeah,
Is a challenge.
similar though to the snow sheds and the things we need to do to keep the main line open. But I think what we have here, and I think the most concrete thing that's come out of this meeting is, I think we go collectively in pursuit of some of this money and getting people who are responsible for that to start executing some of that, either from a study standpoint or some things that might be easier than snow sheds, to start working down that road and utilizing the money. I'm pretty excited to see us do that.
Well, so far they haven't, I agree with everything you just said, so far they haven't really been very flexible about working with us. And I think that we ought to try to develop a more positive culture there. I mean, I think you guys actually got Margaret wrong. I think Margaret's not in favor of the buses. I think she thinks that it's a bus to nowhere, and how we're going to service the bus to nowhere, and where they're planning on having the bus stop makes no sense. And so, we're a long way from working closely with them. I had one other quick thing about the number one. Does anybody else find this limiting? Like, I really like this sentence. I can't scroll up to it. The council supports more rigorous and transparent evaluation of the capacity and natural social environment. I think that's true, but I also think we support more rigorous and transparent evaluation of more things than just this line from the Save Our Canyons lawsuit, the capacity and natural social environment. I think we support conducting more rigorous and transparent evaluation of all the transportation alternatives. So I just find this sentence a little bit limiting, and I think they could broaden it. It would be okay. Because it's not just that we support the natural and social environment of the canyon. How do you feel about that, Dan?
I agree with what you're saying. I think you can expand it. But I don't think it hurts us either way. We could wordsmith it some more, and I'd vote in support either way. So I hear what you're saying. Wordsmith is not a great word.
Well, the beginning of it is just right. We're teeing up we're teeing up to have more of a list here than I think we have. And I think they could think about some succinct ways to add a couple items to the list.
Increase inclusiveness there, yeah, I think.
Right,
yeah.
different traffic management strategies or, what are we calling the one where all the lanes go down at the same time for a couple hours? What's that strategy called?
I think it's 100% unidirectional flow.
The resolution does say continued evaluation of selected lane closures for private vehicles during peak traffic hours to reduce travel times for buses and other shared ride vehicles and services.
So I think that captures it.
It does, but I think I'm gonna come and wordsmith with Jen anyway.
All right.
I'm just gonna say that here.
Because I think, or with
Chris.
because I think it helps to specifically say that, because I do think that's a very distinct, idea amongst the many ideas, and I don't see it really being circulated, and it's worked in other places quite well, but I haven't studied it enough to say works for us, but I believe in it because it doesn't require construction. They do this all around the world. You go to Bangkok or other places like this, stuff happens.
I would also just point out that it has been, like, the potential to do this on Little Falcon has been thoroughly evaluated.
And what's the
In
conclusion?
numerous studies, I think if there was a feasible way to do it, they would be recommending.
Here comes Mike.
Would you disagree? Like,
The representative-
I don't think the state was saying that. Like,
Well, no,
do it without turning any dirt at all.
No, it's not, but it's not the same as these other things.
There may, maybe Mike knows more about it.
Apparently, there's some state road requirement that says if you're gonna have lanes that change direction, you have to have lights, and you have to see the next light from the next light. And so when they look at it, it was, if you go down the valley,
that sounds
lanes
terrible.
do that, you see all the lights. So that was the challenge, unless there's a way to, that's the current rules.
Right.
So you'd have to legislature go after some sort of an exception to make a change, and have to be able to do it, that address the public safety concerns like, okay, you're using the lanes going down, and now there's a hard stack at King, there's two. There's some hurdles that, as we started to go down that path a little bit, the obstacles seemed fairly large.
Did you retreat from that pursuit then, based on that?
We've kind of backed off. Well, we actually took the road committee one time. No.
Okay.
I mean, I think for the council to make a statement like what is in here, and maybe it could be wordsmith to some extent. I mean, technology changes, state regulations change. But I mean, those intersections, on Bangerter and Redwood Road, I mean, those take up hundreds and hundreds of acres. So it may just be a case that there isn't an example of something like that working in a radically constrained environment like this one.
Right.
But maybe in the future, there could.
I wouldn't be able to complete that still. I mean, because it's still just an option on the table. It could continue to have exploration and see if there's a way to make it work. Places that is working, they just don't have the restrictions that we have. We talked to the guys in Valley and down in Chile because they do it all the time.
Yeah, right.
This is the
And that's the prime example, is the Chile example, but there are other issues, of course. There's White Pine Trail, there's these things that are partway up, and there's stuff to be done. But in my experience, when you start exploring things, like possibilities turn into probabilities.
Yeah.
We're raging out, the probability can go off.
Yeah, and I think we want to stay at kind of 30,000 feet in our comments here, and we don't want to, for the skier to explore some of these things in more detail, that's perfectly appropriate for them, but that doesn't mean that we can't just stay at 30,000 feet and articulate what we think would be the best. And focus on the details later when we start getting some traction. If we start getting some traction.
Okay. I would like to introduce the following resolution. That we, the five of us, resolve that we are gonna pass a resolution at the town council meeting.
Pink swear.
You I was thinking.
I don't think we can approve something we haven't read. Right? We made a rule that we couldn't approve something that wasn't written down.
Yeah,
It was like a handrail.
okay,
I'm looking forward to that. That would be really nice.
all right. Further discussion? Okay, do I have to get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you.
See everybody next week. Hey,
Bye.
Dan, I'm really glad we got a wordsmither on the council because I am not one. So I'm really glad you're, filling that role.
And then Lisa, I think the point I think is, I mean, I'm happy to come by and do that, but, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into this, I don't have experience on it, but I'm happy. I'll come and hang out.
Everybody have a good evening.
Yes, thank you.